this is what happens when we start zoning out about vaguely things we know how to cover. Irony, right? Me and you sound like dorks when we're talking about things we actually love. We start talking about litigation and how it applies to municipalities, and we're like, oh my god, we know this. Like, like, but
my years of school paid off.
My years of random jobs at work paid off.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. It is a great day to discuss other people's excellence. I am the unforgettable one himself, Mr. Brett Carroll. Charles is always daydreaming, and we're two guys that like BSN at work. We had to take a bye week last week. All right. It's a 17-week schedule. We also get tired. We had to take a bye week. We had some technical difficulties.
That's what it was.
Technical difficulties. Issues, but everybody's fine. We're back. We're good. We're better than ever now because, we got a new mic.
Wasn't even health issues. It was 100% the cord for the other mic just decided to break.
So we're back. We're back. We took a bye week. We're good. But you know what? As always, we are still on brand.
Yes.
So with that being said, it is week 8. We have a lot of football to talk about. Trade deadline just passed 42 minutes ago as of this recording. No major trades. I mean, Von Miller was a big deal, but to be honest, I think the Rams were going to Super Bowl regardless. Now it's just inevitable if they're healthy.
That's a nasty pass rush right there.
Yeah, and we're going to talk about the Rams later for different reasons. So I'm not even going to get into that. To be honest, the bigger news of the last couple of days have been the injuries. Derrick Henry might be out for the season. Jameis Winston might be out for the season.
ACL.
Yeah, he's definitely out for the season. What am I talking about? Yeah, he's out for the season. Derrick Henry, they're not quite sure, but they think he's pretty much done for the season.
I'll go out on a limb and say he's done. If they're floating the idea he's not playing the rest of the season, he's a running back. He's not playing the rest of the season.
Yeah, so he just had surgery on his foot. I don't know if anybody knows. I know we don't play running back, but I'm pretty sure to run you need your foot. So
it's kind of important.
So those are two big injuries. It's interesting. I heard somebody float out the idea that maybe the Saints should have traded for Teddy Bridgewater since he was successful there last year, or 2 years ago, I should say. We heard Phillip Rivers' name.
That's what I was going to say. He's floating the idea of coming back and playing for the Saints as of this recording. Like this is beginning of the week, days before the Thursday night game. So by the time you're hearing this, the Saints might have made a move, and Phillip Rivers might be a Saint now, for all we know. Or you were floating a different idea.
Yeah, Cam Newton as another guy. To be very honest with you, Cam Newton to me is the least logical one, only because his skill set. Well, no, here's why I think it's logical. Because they could use him the same way they use Taysom Hill. And Taysom Hill will probably be the quarterback going forward. You bring in a guy like Cam Newton has the same skill sets as a Taysom Hill. You might not have to adjust your offense that much. The question is, can a guy like Cam Newton, or even a guy like Phillip Rivers, come in and learn the playbook that fast in the middle of a season? They already had their bye week, I believe. So that's kind of a hard adjustment period. That's why a lot of people were saying Teddy Bridgewater, he's been there before. That's something that he would be able to do.
Well, Phillip Rivers isn't like a rookie or nothing. I think just based off his talent alone, he could go in there and be better than the backups, I should say, that would be filling in for Jameis. And that's Phillip Rivers. Everyone knows, if they listen to me, that it's not like I'm the biggest Phillip Rivers fan, but I will give the guy that much props, is that if you got a hurt quarterback situation and he wants to quarterback for you, you're doing all right.
Yeah, right. Yeah, it's not bad. And then for Tennessee, they signed Adrian Peterson.
Ooh.
Unfortunately, he's not in his prime, and he should be retired. I heard not a rumor, but an idea out there that they should have called the Giants and asked for Saquon Barkley. And when I heard that, I said, you know what? That's not a bad idea. Obviously, a much better situation for Saquon. The Giants still seem to be kind of rebuilding. If the
what's the trade? I'm not going to say it's not a good idea in theory, but at the same time, realistically speaking, what would the Titans be giving the Giants that they would feel it's the right price, and then the Giants would be like, oh yeah, we'll accept that? because for the Giants, you have to figure they're going to want a decent return for someone they took number 2 overall still on the rookie deal. And you got to figure from the Titans perspective, he's been hurt. We're not giving you some king's ransom here. So just take what you can get because we think this is a good price. If I'm a Titans fan, I try to take out my bias and be a Titans fan. You're not giving up anything more than what, a 3rd round pick for him or something like that.
Yeah, but I think that's a decent compensation though.
As a Giants fan, I don't know, man. Because hypothetically,
well, let me ask you this, because also as a Titans fan, you got to realize too, this is really just for 1 year because you expect Derrick Henry to be back next year. He's probably going to be your feature back, right? And obviously,
but as a Giants fan, you're like, if the plan works, that's pretty much a 4th round pick, not a 3rd round pick, because we expect you, if everything goes according to plan, to be a contender in the AFC and have a late pick.
Right. So that's true. I guess if you're a Dave Gettleman, what would it take for you to trade Saquon Barkley? Just hypothetical.
Hypothetically, I think he would do it if it's a 1st round pick of any kind. Let me clarify. I'm not saying
I don't think you're getting a 1st round pick.
Well, there's been crazy trades that involve firsts in the past. I'm just throwing it out there. You asked what would definitely do it. Any 1st round pick. Let me just say that. It could be the last pick of the 1st round, I think.
Well, no, obviously. I don't think there's a team. Maybe the Ravens would say, if their running back situation was that bad and they think they're Saquon Barkley away from winning the Super Bowl, maybe they would say, all right, if it takes a 1st round pick to do it, maybe. I don't see anybody trading a 1st round pick for a running back that's been hurt the last few years.
What I'm saying. I wasn't even saying it like it's realistic, because I don't think the trade itself is realistic, because on the Titans end, you don't want to give up anybody, right? And on the Giants side, okay, you're not going to give us a high pick. So which player are you going to include that kind of sweeten the deal for us getting rid of who's supposed to be a foundational piece of the team?
Right, but he's also a guy you could probably lose in 2 years, in another year or so.
Oh, I get that part. I'm not saying this is smart. I'm not saying this is the way to go. I just mean, I don't think it's a realistic trade. Sorry. Okay. Sasha's attacking me, trying to climb up onto the camera because she heard me talking to Brett. So you wondering why I'm all just turning around and everything. I'm waiting for the ninja to jump on top of me. So
yeah. And you know what? Maybe you're right. I it's an interesting scenario. Like I said, I didn't even think about it until somebody brought it up today. I said, that's interesting to think about. A trade that didn't happen, that I think we all agree should have happened, is OBJ still is on Cleveland. His father's obviously fed up. The Browns seem to be fed up. I for the life of me, I don't understand why the Browns won't just punt on OBJ. I really don't. And it's one of those things, like, me, I love to hate on the Browns, but I've also given them a lot of props over the last couple of years about how well they've been playing. Because, if I'm going to clown you when you're playing bad, I'm going to give you props when you're playing well. To me, this is the type of things that the Browns do that are just stupid. Like, you're going to lose him for nothing very soon, because I think this is the last year of guaranteed money. So you're going to lose him for basically nothing, right? Why wouldn't you trade him and get something back? Yes, I understand you're probably not going to get a treasure trove of compensation for him, but that's partly your fault. You're not throwing him the football. You're not proving that he's still the commodity that would warrant what you gave up to get him from New York. So at the end of the day, it's like at some point you got to take what you can get. And if you have and by the way, free up some cash space. Like he's owed $8 million. There's still young players on that roster that they could definitely use that $8 million to try to pay. So for the life of me, I don't understand why they won't trade him. It's obvious him and Baker have zero chemistry. It's obvious he does not want to be there anymore. To his credit, he hasn't said anything, and he's trying to do the right thing. There's other people speaking for him. But to me, these are the type of things to me that takes you, as Browns fans, y'all want to take the next step, right? Y'all want to go from the cellar to the attic. You want to be the class of the AFC. You want to be the class in the NFL. You want to win the Super Bowl. It's certain petty things like this that's going to keep you from doing that. Baker Mayfield works better without Odell Beckham Jr. You can trade him to another team and get pretty good compensation. It's not going to be great. I understand it's not going to be great. You're not going to get a first and a third or whatever. You're not going to get that. But there's no way you're telling me the Packers weren't willing to throw something at you. There's no way, even if you had to trade him in conference, because that was another thing I heard. Like they really wanted to trade him out of conference, Oh, well, if he's not that good, why do you care if he's in conference or not? Is it because you know that you're underutilizing him?
Yeah.
So if that's the case, why don't you just use him? I don't understand that.
I think it's because Baker and him have zero chemistry. The team wants to side with their quarterback, which they usually do. Any team, I mean, and
trade him, which is fine. Trade him.
I don't think they want to trade him because I think they feel like they gave up so much for him that they have to get something equal or better in return. Do you remember what the trade was between the Giants and the Browns by any chance?
Go ahead and fill us in.
It was back in March of 2019. Feels like forever ago, don't it? The Cleveland Browns and Giants made the trade. The Giants got safety Jabril Peppers, who arguably has been a better player since the trade, and 2 draft picks that became Dexter Lawrence and Oshimane Jimenez. I say Jimenez. I never pronounce X-Men's name right, but it's irrelevant because penalties and anger from yesterday. But anyway, sorry.
Oh God.
Bro, but what, offside. Sorry, no, I'm not doing this right now.
But what was the actual draft picks? Were they first rounders or
it was Dexter Lawrence was a first round, and the other one was a third round.
Okay, so they got back a player, a first and a third,
a player that arguably first round quality,
right?
So. And that's how it was taken at the time.
I think he was drafted. Jabril Peppers, I'm pretty sure, was drafted in the first round.
He was the first or second round draft pick, yeah. But also, I remember at the time the Giants pretty much saying Jabril Peppers counts as a first round pick,
right?
So they said that would be like getting 2 picks for Odell, which yada yada yada. But that was the trade, and he isn't moved. I think both me and you, as fans of the NFL, we're hoping that he would be moved. We're hoping that we would be coming on here and talking about wherever he landed, wherever that may have been. And if it wasn't the conference, you just got to get, you start thinking, okay, so who was trying to trade for you? Was it the Raiders, the Chiefs, and somebody in division, as crazy as that sounds. But
and to be fair, from what I heard is what held this up a little bit was the fact that because of his $8 million guaranteed, there was only a finite amount of teams that had the cap space to make a trade like that, right? Unless you were moving players. But again, you cut that field in half even more, allegedly, if you're already on the stance of we're not trading to him in conference, right? And then so that leaves like a few teams. And then I think the Eagles were one of those teams that would have financially been able to do it. But why would they do that right now? You know what I mean? That just doesn't make sense. So it's, to me, the Browns were just being petty. They wanted like the perfect situation, and it wasn't going to be the perfect situation. But you're not in a perfect situation now. You have a disgruntled wide receiver on the team, and honestly, the fact that his father is putting out 11-minute videos of him being wide open, not getting the football, the fact that you have LeBron James speaking out on his behalf. Yeah, Odell's not saying anything, but it's getting louder and louder and louder. It's only a matter of time before he does start talking. And it's like, bro, like, why would you wait for it to get this bad when you could have just got rid of it, been done with it? Even if you get a mid-round pick, that's better than nothing.
I don't get it. As you say, the Browns are going to brown, and it seems like they can't get out of their own way sometimes. They should be utilizing him more. I know Steelers fans really rip on Baker Mayfield and claim it's his fault. I know a lot more Browns fans feel like, hey, he has more chemistry with Landry, and it's not on him to make one guy happier in an offense that, for the most part, has been working under Baker Mayfield, but not working to their full potential, I think, by anybody's standards. When you look at the talent they have on paper, and they seem to be completely run reliant and unable to turn that pass game into something viable for Baker Mayfield.
But my thing is, you can still run the same system. You can still be run first. You can still work off play action. Again, there's an 11-minute video compilation of this man being wide open and not getting the football. So it's not even like, oh, he doesn't fit what they do. They're choosing just not to throw the ball in his direction. And that's incredibly ridiculous to me. I've never seen that before when you have a star wide receiver and the quarterback's just like, nah, I'm not throwing him the football. I don't think I've ever seen that before. You know what I mean? Like, as much as Big Ben and AB butted heads, Big Ben was smart enough to know, like, hey, I might not like that mother effer, but you know what? Even if he's not open, I'm throwing him the football. That's because Baker Mayfield, that's usually how you get paid, bro. Let the wide receivers make you look better than what you are. That's usually how you get paid, my brother. If you throw it for 5,000 yards because he has like 1,500 of them,
I don't get it, man. Okay, before we move on to other deals that didn't happen at this trade deadline that definitely should have happened, Odell's curious, man. It's crazy to where he is now going into 2022 to where he was when he first got traded, to even where he was when he was a Giant, and it seemed like this was the rumors around trade deadline for the Giants, right? His career has not gone the way that all of us wanted it to go. The haters are happy. They're like, oh, we knew he was overrated in New York. Okay, he criticized Eli, right? So he's going to get a lot of shit for his people. And like what you said, the perception that it's not his fault, yada, 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 it's the quarterback's fault. The problem is this is the second time this is happening. And the first time, as most people are going to argue now with the benefit of hindsight, it wasn't Eli's fault. No one's going to blame Eli now after the fact when you go back and look at those Giants teams, how they were constructed, the offensive line, how good Eli is, how good Baker Mayfield is in 2021. No one's going to look and go, yeah, Eli was a problem and Odell was right. I was, at the time, I defended Odell. I was like, yeah, Eli could be better. Because watching every week, sometimes it was just like, just throw it in his direction and he'll catch it. With that being said, that is not the reality for Odell either in 2021. Not saying he's getting the same amount of targets, not at all, but he has dropped passes. He hasn't, he's done that move where he's already looking to go before he actually catches it and ends up dropping it. And he's done that too many times. So if you already have no chemistry and I throw it to you 3 times and 2 of them are drops, you're mad I'm not throwing it to you 3 more times, or I'm going to keep just doing what's been working for us. Now the Browns are what, 4-4? So there obviously is room for improvement for a team that wants to win a Super Bowl, not your division, a Super Bowl.
But even that, I think that's facetious too. So like in the Steelers game, he threw it to him 1 time. And the 1 time he threw it to him was, he overthrew him and he almost got his head knocked off. And some people are saying, well, Odell went up and tried to one-hand it when he should have went up with 2 hands. Yeah, but when I look at the play, I see as a guy like, yo, he tried to go up with 1 hand because that was the only chance in hell he had to catch it because it was overthrown. If he hit him in stride where he didn't have to jump for it, it probably would have been a touchdown if he could have split the 2 defenders. He overthrew him and he had to jump and try to catch it with 1 hand. And maybe you could argue he might have been able to get it with 2 hands and he shouldn't have tried to one-hand it, but like, I mean, I think that's nitpicking at that point. Like you throw it to a guy once and it's between, and it's a play that he easily could have got his head knocked off.
Yeah.
I'm not necessarily selling out for that too.
Especially I understand
when I know the trade deadline's in 2 days.
And I get why in this day and age, a wide receiver like Odell Beckham would not be willing to put his neck out there to make a catch for a Baker Mayfield on the Browns right before the trade deadline. Now, like what you said, if they're going to be petty and they're not going to game plan with them, I just don't get it. Why didn't you trade him to the Jets? You're telling me the Jets did not have a deal, like some type of trade ready for Odell Beckham? I don't believe it. No, and I know Jet fans are not the biggest fans of Odell because of the cross hallway rivalry or whatever it is. But at the same time, you're not telling me the Jets fans wouldn't be happy to bring him in on this team that just needs some type of weapon on offense, any type of spark on offense, any type of person to go, we're in a tight spot. To take some of the pressure away and some of the attention away, so we might be able to open something up. There are teams in the AFC that would do that. There are teams in the NFC that would do that. And you're going to sit there and say you want what you gave out for a third of the production that you paid for? that makes no sense. You like what you said, to beat a dead horse. They could have got something for him, and both teams could have benefited from it, just from a a addition by subtraction type of thing. But that wasn't even the worst, the most egregious non-move of the trade deadline. Obviously, if you're listening to us, you already know Deshaun Watson isn't a Dolphin, and I don't know what the hell the Texans are doing. The Texans didn't make a move, so what the hell? Like all of a sudden,
the Deshaun Watson thing, and I'm glad you brought that up. The Deshaun Watson thing is interesting because from what we're hearing, the Dolphins kind of backed out at the last minute and they decided not to pull the trigger on it. And I can't blame them. At the end of the day, to me, it made no sense for any team to trade for Deshaun Watson right now. None. Because at the end of the day, we don't know what's going to happen with him. We don't know, you might be trading a whole year's worth of assets. Because let's be real, Deshaun Watson as the player deserves multiple number ones, probably some thirds or some seconds or whatever, maybe some players on the way back. He deserves whatever the Texans want from him for him as a player, right? But because of the legal situation, you can't trade that for him. You might have him for half a season. What happens if he's found guilty in February and then they turn around and say, well, now that we found you guilty on the civil cause, we're going to go for the actual crime, right? Or what if the NFL says, oh, because he's guilty, he's got to sit out a year? I mean, that's too much to trade for a guy that you might. And that's even if the NFL just says, whoa, he can't play this year. So you don't know what's going to happen. To me, it made no sense. I wouldn't be trading anything for a guy that I don't know is going to play. I get it. I know a lot of people are upset that he's not traded because he's a superstar in this league and we want to see him play on Sundays. And it would have been cool to see that saga finally end, at least a part of it. But I don't blame any team for saying, you know what, until we know more, I cannot on good faith trade all these assets for this guy. I can't do it. It just doesn't make sense to me.
All right. I'm going to read an article from ESPN, Sarah Barshop. Real quick, just to kind of give the whole view of where we're at now, because the trade deadline's over. He's obviously staying in Texans this season. Right. So the Dolphins did their due diligence on Watson and had conversations with the Texans, but Miami's owner, Stephen Ross, had contingencies that needed to be met for any deal and made the final decision to not move forward. A source told ESPN's Adam Schefter. Watson, who asked to be traded in January because he was unhappy with the process Houston used to hire general manager Nick Caserio, has been a healthy scratch all season for the Texans. Less than 2 months after Watson's trade request, the first of 23 lawsuits was filed against him. There are 22 active lawsuits with allegations of sexual assault or sexually inappropriate behavior during massage sessions against Watson. 10 women have filed complaints with Houston's police against Watson. His attorney, Rusty Hardin, told ESPN's John Barr in July. According to Hardin, 8 of them are among the women who have filed suits against Watson. 2 have not sued the quarterback. Watson's trade request came less than 6 months after the quarterback signed a 4-year, $156 million extension with the Texans that keeps him under contract through the 2025 season. The deal made him the second highest paid player in the NFL behind Kansas City Chiefs quarterback Patrick Mahomes. As part of that contract, Watson has a no trade clause, which gives him some control over the possible trade destinations. After skipping the Texans offseason workouts, Watson reported to training camp in July to avoid being fined $50,000 per day. Watson has been on the active roster all season, and the Texans are paying him his $10.54 million salary for 2021. He goes to the facility but does not practice with the team. He has been ruled out with a non-injury related designation on the injury report each week. So there we are, everybody. That's the only information we have. But as a fan and not a lawyer and just a guy talking into a microphone to one of his friends, that is a bad sign for Deshaun Watson that Miami did not want to pull the trigger on this trade. It's a good sign for the Miami Dolphins. It's hell for the Texans if you're a fan of them. And for everybody else, it's a nasty situation, man, because there's plenty of people that don't want that on their team. Not the top 10 talent that Deshaun Watson obviously is. They don't want the dark cloud of 20 plus sexual misconduct allegations for any player on their team, let alone their superstar quarterback. So it's a messy situation all around. To all of the clusterfuck that Brett described before, it is just something that no team wants to give up a future for when you're not even guaranteed the present with the player you're giving up the future for. So it's a messy situation. Me and Brett are just two fans, and we're certainly ain't got the connections in Miami or Houston to delve too deep into it. But I just felt like we can't not mention this, because both me and him were ready as fans to talk about the excitement that would go to Miami if he were to be traded, and all the other moves that were hypothetically in the air to be made.
The Panthers were another team that was rumored to be really heavily involved in this, and they basically said the same thing. And we'll get to the Panthers later. But again, it just makes sense. If you're a team, and apparently the Panthers would have had to give up Christian McCaffrey in the process, which again, honestly, I think if you know Deshaun Watson would play, you do it. As great as Christian McCaffrey is, he is a running back. You can always get some type of person to replace his production. Hell, Deshaun Watson is going to replace his production in a lot of those ways. So
yeah, but it's the elephant in the room is the allegations. Let's be real. Right. Because right. So as a Panthers fan yourself, shout out to my boy Brandon, he brought it up that he didn't want the trade to happen because he didn't want a guy like that on his team. He didn't want to cheer for that guy. Now, we didn't get into it because over the weekend it was a party, and even though me and him could talk about these type of in-depth things, it's not the types of things to talk about at a party. But with the implication being, if he's playing, he's innocent. That's what we're all really thinking at the end of the day. And that's kind of what the conversation's based around. But in reality, from all the shit you've gotten as a Steelers fan for most of Big Ben's run, we know that is not the reality of fan perception everywhere. So with that being said, most of us, and I say us as in the fan community, see if he were to get traded, that's the good old boy network kind of signaling to the NFL fans that, all right, he's innocent. These are mostly bullshit allegations. The fact that he's not traded isn't some sign of good management by the Texans, because Lord knows that ain't the case. It's a sign that there's some fire to this smoke, and we're not going to be attached to it when it all burns down.
Or at least some unsureties, right? You know what I mean? At the very least, they're not assured. Like you said, the Dolphins owner wanted certain conditions to be met, and the Texans seem to have said, "Nah, we're not doing that." Yeah. So, you know what I mean? Like, so who knows? If nothing else, they're not sure. So,
and they're not sure. I'm sure the contingencies were if he doesn't play, the one turns into a two or something like that.
Right.
And the fact that they didn't want to do it tells you something. The fact that, okay, if you want to defend Deshaun Watson, because we're both, as far as the football player, we're all fans of him, right? So you want to defend him. What I read before, the math breaks down. Okay, so there's 22 allegations, 20 there's paperwork too. 8 are being represented by the same guy. So that leaves 12 kind of out in the air just with their paperwork filed. Just to put it out there, guys, as a regular ass guy, 1 is too many. 1. 2 is too many. If there was 2 that only filed paperwork and weren't doing nothing, there's more of the devil's advocate game we could play here. Damn near a dozen credible accounts is fucking problematic. Like, no matter how we try to spill it, no matter how we try to spin it, no matter what you want to do,
this story was just weird from the get-go. To me, as somebody who knows some professional athletes, the fact that he didn't have his own personal masseuse that comes to his house, like, to me, that was the first thing I said. Like, you don't have a personal masseuse? Everybody I know got personal masseuse in that industry. Like, why do you not have a personal masseuse? Like you said, you're now the second highest paid player in the league. It's not like you were making chump change before that. You were still a first round pick. So I don't understand why that's the case. But again, I'm the type of person, I let the legal system play itself out. I don't ever presume innocent or guilt until the legal system plays itself out, because you never know. I know a lot of people that get accused of things that they didn't do. So but at the same time, I understand why, if I was a team, if I was the Steelers or the Panthers, I wouldn't have made any type of trade for this dude unless it was totally conditional. And my conditions were to be, this dude found guilty, he don't play, I ain't giving you shit. Like, that would have been my conditions. So So that's where we are with that. But let's talk about what happened on the field and what's going on with teams that are actually playing and players that are actually playing.
Okay, I want to start off somewhere. You're going to start off, but I want to toss it to you because I've been waiting. Last week we had some technical difficulties, and you promised me a Sam Darnold rant, and and to be completely honest, he never went into it more than that. He just kind of left me with a cliffhanger of he's really mad at Sam Darnold. Now, I could have been funny and just started off here saying how much he loves Sam Darnold. He thinks he's the future of Carolina and all this other shit. But anybody listening to me would be like, oh, that's a lie. So what did you see 2 weeks ago that pissed you off that much? And how did it manifest a week later?
And last week, even though they won, I'm not as mad about it as I was last week. So unfortunately, the rant is not going to be as great as it would have been that week. But here's the issue: Sam Darnold. I'm just keep it plain and simple. Sam Darnold doesn't realize his career is on the line here. His career is on the line. He has not been playing well at all. And here's the thing: I can make some excuses for him, and I'll start off with the excuses. One, the offensive line is not good, especially the interior of that offensive line. It is obviously the biggest issue on this team besides quarterback. And as any quarterback will tell you, we all talk about the tackles and protecting your blind spot and everything else, but any quarterback will tell you they do not like pressure up the middle. They do not like pressure when they can't step up and make their throws, when they can't step up in the pocket, or they can't slide around the pocket. The interior of their line, the center and the two guards are not good right now. And pressure is in his face a lot. That's an issue. Second issue, there are a lot of drops. Matter of fact, the Panthers have the most drops in the NFL right now. That's a problem. That's a problem. You got to help your quarterback out too. You're getting paid millions of dollars to catch the football. You need to catch the football. And this isn't a wide receiver crew that's bad. Like I said, I've said this. I think DJ Moore is the best wide receiver in the NFL that we don't talk about, right? We always talk about the Devontae Adams and the DeAndre Hopkins of the world. I think DJ Moore is the best receiver we don't talk about. I think he's that good. Robbie Anderson's not a scrub. They have a good receiving core. A lot of drops. That's two. And three, Joe Brady, who's supposed to be the newest hotshot coordinator, is going to be a head coach one day. He's the new McVay. He came from the Sean Payton system. He was at LSU with Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson, and they had the greatest offense of all time statistically, and they were blowing people out of the water. He hasn't done a great job either, especially against your Giants. A lot of people were pointing out his flaws in terms of play calling, running man beaters against zone, which made no sense, and then vice versa, running zone beaters against man that weren't working out. So he hasn't been on his game in terms of his play calling and diagnostic as well. Those are the excuses. Here's the problem. Sam Darnold, it's not like you have been faultless either, brother. There's been good plays that's been called that you are not seeing the field the right way. You're not going to where the play is going. Against your Giants, again, he did run good zone beaters. Sam Darnold's looking the wrong way. For a fact the guy that's going to be open is on the other side on the crosser. You're sitting there going to the flat when there's three people there. There's no way you're going to get a ball in there, right? That's not going to work. So you're not seeing it clearly. Your accuracy has been bad. His mechanics are shot sometimes. And you know how much I hate quarterbacks with bad mechanics. This is my love-hate relationship with Cam Newton. Sam Darnold has a lot of those same things where he's got the arm talent, and a lot of times he trusts his arm too much that his feet aren't set, or his shoulders aren't square, or he's doing little things that makes him inaccurate, which leads to the drop problem. Okay, yeah, there's been a lot of drops. Some of those are on you, Sam Darnold. Some of those are because you're throwing bad balls. And yeah, I know the old saying, if it hit your hands, you should catch it. But if a guy's running full speed one way, he has to stop on a dime and try to catch something back, you're going to drop some footballs. I would say 50, maybe I'll say 60-40, because DJ Moore dropped a surefire touchdown. That wasn't Sam Darnold's fault. That was a pretty good ball. He just dropped it, right? So I'll say 60-40, 60 of it is receivers dropping passes. Chuba Hubbard, the running back, he had a major drop problem. If they don't hit him in the numbers, he ain't catching it. So 60% is the receivers dropping the ball, but the other 40% is probably bad balls by Sam Darnold. And he's just not making good decisions. Like I said, throwing it where it doesn't need to be thrown, trying to force plays still, just not doing the right thing. There's things that he can be doing, especially with the offensive line. You have checkdowns, throw it to your checkdown. Why are you holding the ball when you know your offensive line is not that great? When you do get protection, you got to be accurate with the football. So, yes, there are still excuses for why this offense isn't that good, but Sam Darnold, you are also part of the problem. And here's my biggest issue. At some point, Sam Darnold, we don't care about the excuses, man. That's life. It's not just a football thing. That's life. We pay you big bucks because you're supposed to mask some of those issues. They know they have to fix the offensive line. They will fix it in the offseason. But right now, it is what it is. They know there's some drops. They understand that. It is what it is. We know our offense coordinator isn't always calling the best play. But if you were a better quarterback, you should be able to audible out of those plays. You're not playing to the best of your ability, and that's hindering the rest of the team. And no team is going to pick you up after this if you don't fix this. Why? Because no team is perfect. There's not a team out there that has a great line and great receivers and a great offensive coordinator that doesn't already have a quarterback. You know what I mean? Like we see even with Patrick Mahomes right now, he's struggling a little bit, and we'll get into that later. But Sam Darnold, you have to rise above some of these things. It's not like you're on a terrible team. Your offensive line is bad. Is it the worst offensive line in the league? No, it's not the best, but it's not the worst. Your receivers, are they dropping balls? Yes, but they're still a pretty good receiving core. There's still a handful of teams that would probably be like, yo, give me that receiving core, okay? Joe Brady, is he making some bad decisions? Yes, but every coaching staff makes bad decisions. You should hear my dad on Sundays. Apparently, nobody in the Steelers coaching staff knows what the hell they're doing, even though they've never had a losing season. But let him tell it. They're all idiots that need to be fired. And every fan base says that about their coaching staff, okay? Unfortunately, not everybody's going to get it right every single point, every single time. And for Sam Darnold, he's got to realize at some point we're going to look at you, bro. What are you doing? Because it's not like you're playing perfect and everybody else around you is screwing up. You gotta do better. With the Jets, we understood like, yo, you're not playing well, but God, good Lord, it's not like you got much to work with. You got something to work with now. What you are on now is basically every team in the NFL. So if I'm a GM, if I'm an owner, if I'm a head coach, why would I say, let me take that guy? Because why do I have to be perfect for you to play at a great level? That's not the case. You're supposed to play at a great level all the time. And it's our job to make sure the surrounding pieces are good enough. If we have to be perfect in order for you to be perfect, I don't want you. I'll find somebody else that can do the job that you can. And like I said, this is not just an NFL thing. That's a life thing. I got plenty of friends who always complain about their job, always complain about their relationship, always complain about all this other stuff. I said, bro, that's life, dude. It's not going to be perfect. What are you doing to help mitigate the situation? Nothing? Well, then you're part of the problem, brother.
Well, you said the Jets, right? And I got to bring this up as a segue because you said a lot there, and I'm gonna leave it with you because Panthers, and I know Panthers fans. I'm not going to defend a damn side right now because y'all just mad. So you said the Jets, and it's interesting because obviously Darnold came from the Jets, yada yada yada. And this past weekend, Mike White made his NFL debut, replacing Sam Darnold's Jet replacement, the number 2 overall pick, Zach Wilson. And Mike White passed for 3 touchdowns and 405 yards, the Jets' first 400-yard passing day since the year 2000, and the most by a first-time starter since Cam Newton's 422 yards for the Panthers in 2011. So I watched that game. I wanted to see the Bengals. I wasn't disappointed. And the Jets, to their credit, looked good under the like first I'm like, oh wow, the Bengals really didn't show up. And then the Jets run that play where they hand it off and have the running back or Crowder throw the touchdown to Mike White. What's it?
New York Special, yeah.
No, not the New York Special. Was it the same thing as the Philly or whatever?
Yeah, the Philly Special, the New York Special.
Yeah. And I'm sitting there just like, wait, what the fuck is going on? What game am I watching? Who's Mike White? Why am I cheering for the Jets? I had a bunch of questions, between 1 and 4 in the afternoon on Sunday. And one of them, in all sincerity, I couldn't wait to do this week for this random in the moment question. But is there a quarterback competition in New York, at least for the foreseeable future, the next couple of weeks? Because the team looked better with Mike White.
No.
And since your rookie's hurt, just hear me out. When rookies get hurt, and in the past, even if the backup was like a McCown or a McCoy or somebody that was just a veteran that could be, a placeholder while the rookie heals up, that wasn't crazy, especially on bad teams. Why get your young quarterback killed? So why is it different now? You just have two young guys. And if this dude is legit going to start winning games for the Jets, which is just what the Jets want to do, is win games, why wouldn't there be, in all earnesty, a quarterback competition? Because the value of Zach Wilson has not been degraded yet. You could still flip him and get a good haul because he's still the number 2 overall pick from the 2021 draft. He is not, destroyed or weared. You're not going to get a terrible return for him, even if he doesn't suit up.
Because Mike White, no offense to him, caught a Bengals team that's coming off probably the best win in franchise history over the last 5 years. Going into Baltimore, beating Baltimore like that, this was a trap game. It was a letdown game. You're at the Jets, the 1-5 Jets with their, second string quarterback in. Like that, this was a letdown game, and they got let down. And by the way, we're in the overtime, I believe, right? Mm-hmm. So or close to it. Actually, no, they won in regulation. They won in regulation. I'm sorry, but
the Colts Titans was overtime, right?
Right. It was a close game. The Jets kind of came back because the Bengals were kind of winning. So I'm not overreacting to that game either way, because those are the type of things that happen, especially with a young team like the Bengals. That happens. It's called a trap game. Ryan Clark used to talk about all the time. The week before and the week after Ravens week is always the worst weeks because you already know how you're emotionally, you're on either a high or a low, and physically you're either high or low because of after Ravens week. So I'm not going to sit now. Again, if Mike White comes out and wins the next 2 games, okay, maybe, but I gotta see that first. And plus, once teams get tape on Mike White, something tells me he ain't gonna be throwing 400 yards anymore.
So you're saying it wasn't rigged, and it wasn't because Vegas would lose all that money and all those salty takes you saw from everybody that bet the Bengals on their parlays and lost that last week. You're saying it's not rigged.
I didn't even know about that. No, I'm not saying it's rigged. I'm not saying. Although now that I think about it, that call was really controversial.
Oh, here we go. Real time. Brett went, I do like a good conspiracy theory.
I do like a good conspiracy theory. Ooh. But I'm not going to say that. But just to wrap it up on Sam Darnold, like I said, he's playing for his career. If he does not figure this out by the end of the year, his career is over. I don't see any team ever.
Whoa, bold prediction there.
No, well, all right. When I say career is over as a starting quarterback, yeah, he might get a backup job somewhere. But as a starting quarterback, I don't see any team taking a flyer on him. Why? Because, like I said,
he's the Panthers quarterback for at least next year too.
I mean, again, the Panthers were talking about Deshaun Watson in the offseason. Let's say he gets off and he could play next year. The Panthers going to be one of the first teams on the phone.
Okay. Well, we'll see about that. There was another thing.
Or even just in the draft. What I'm saying is Sam Darnold is playing for his starting career because, like I said, no team in their right mind is going to say, oh, yeah, let's take a flyer on Sam Darnold. We have a better situation than the Panthers do. No, you don't. You know what I mean?
Today, at the recording, for more on the field affecting news, Henry Ruggs was in an accident, DUI, fatal car crash, and that'll be developing more as the weeks go on. So I don't want to tarp too much on that. I just feel weird not mentioning it because somebody did die and somebody lost somebody today. So it sucks for Henry Ruggs in his career, but it sucks more for whoever lost their life and their family. but because I wanted to go out west.
For anybody out there, please do not drink and drive. Like
That makes no sense. Like I'm not going to sit here and act like I was an angel at 22 years old, but you know what wasn't as popular at 20 when I was 22 10 years ago? Uber, Lyft.
Right. And also, if you're a professional athlete, hire a driver, please. Again, it's one of those things. Every professional athlete I know has a driver. I don't understand why people don't do that. Go out, have a good. It was on his bye week. He did nothing wrong. Go out, have a good time. Make sure you can get home safe. It's just that simple.
Make sure everyone gets home safe.
Yeah,
but
like
in other news, right? Because we missed last week, so I want to catch y'all up again. And I'm going to read from ESPN. It is a Seth Wickersham story, and this is about Stan Kroenke and the LA Rams. And Stan Kroenke,
Well, let me do some background on that before you.
Oh, I have the older article up if you want me to read it.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
So I'm just going to read it from the lead on, so we can all be on the same page. LA Rams owner Stan Kroenke might be trying to back away from his promise to cover tens of millions of dollars in legal expenses related to his team's 2016 departure from St. Louis, a revelation that angered many owners when they learned of it Tuesday, sources told ESPN, and that's a week ago today. A legal update from the NFL General Counsel, Jeff Pash, during the owner's first in-person meeting since December 2019, stunned many in the room, according to accounts from people who were there and others briefed on proceedings. The league, through a spokesperson, declined comment about 5-6 days ago, and a Rams spokesperson also declined comment. The Rams and other owners are embroiled in a fierce 4-year lawsuit from the St. Louis Regional Convention and Sports Complex Authority, which argues that the league broke its own relocation guidelines, misled the public on its plans to leave the city, and cost the city millions in revenue. The league has lost many of its motions and was denied a hearing in the U.S. Supreme Court. The case has entangled all 32 teams and cost millions in legal fees, which to this point have been mostly covered by Kroenke under an indemnification agreement he signed as part of the relocation. For some teams, the bills have run to 8 figures. Although Kroenke has been in discussions with the league for some time over the scope of the indemnification agreement, owners first learned of a shift in his position several hours into Tuesday's meeting at the Intercontinental New York Barclay Hotel. Sources told ESPN that the executives for each team were asked to leave the room. Only owners, representatives for that team didn't send owners, and senior league executives remained. Pash delivered a lengthy update on the lawsuit, including the league's latest argument that the trial set for January should be moved out of St. Louis in order to get an impartial jury. And we have an update after this story. Sources told ESPN that Kroenke then stood and told the room that he has invested in the league and done everything that the league has asked him to do. He has apologized for the ongoing lawsuit, but argued that it wasn't his fault. Kroenke took a few questions from the room. Dallas Cowboys owner Jerry Jones, known for not shutting the fuck up, a fierce Kroenke advocate who championed the relocation and helped push it over the finish line during a contentious vote in January 2016, told the room that Kroenke had done a lot for the league. Then, in an unusual move, Goodell asked Kroenke to leave the room. Sources told ESPN he did. That's when Pash told the room that the league was notified by Kroenke's attorneys that Kroenke is challenging the indemnification agreement that all 3 teams involved in the LA Derby in 2016, the Rams, Chargers, and Raiders, signed on the morning of the vote. Over the years, teams have been required to provide 8 years of phone records, emails for discovery. This past summer, St. Louis Circuit Judge Christopher McGraw ordered Kroenke and 5 other owners to provide financial records to help a jury determine potential damages. Earlier in October, McGraw fined Clark Hunt of the Kansas City Chiefs, John Mara of the New York Giants, Robert Kraft of the New England Patriots, and the Cowboys Jones for failing to provide full records. Kroenke has been footing almost all the bills. Sources said the room seemed stunned by Pash's update on Kroenke's what? What'd you say?
Yeah, let me cut you off there real quick. Just for people that don't, when I said the background, I was talking about even before all this happened. So here's where we are. You basically had most of it, right? Here's the situation. Kroenke is one of the, if not the wealthiest owner in the NFL, which I didn't know that, but it makes sense, I guess.
He's part of the
he owns
He's part of the
Arsenal.
Walton family that owns Walmart, and I believe he also owns Arsenal Football Club over in London.
Right, right. Kroenke had a deal with St. Louis. He basically backed out of the deal in St. Louis to want to go to LA. For those who don't know, this created like civil freaking war between the owners of the NFL. It was a whole deal because the Raiders were involved, the Cowboys were involved, obviously the Chargers were involved. It was a whole big thing, and it became a civil war between the fossils, the people that are going to die any second now, and just the old people. Not, I wouldn't say young and new owners, because there's no young owners in the NFL. They're all old farts. But basically, the fossils and the just old as hell crew, right? And really, the big money owners versus the small family owned teams, right? And part of that was because they knew that this lawsuit was going to happen of him leaving. He promised the people in his camp, the Jerry Joneses of the world, Al Davises of the world, the Spanoses of the world, hey, I'm going to flip the bill. Don't worry about it. I got it. I'll take care of it if we have to settle any lawsuit. Now that the move has been made, everybody's making money. Jerry Jones has a hotel company that is right close to SoFi Stadium that has made millions of dollars with this move. The NFL office, West Coast office, is at SoFi Stadium. Everybody has made boatloads of money on this move. And so Kroenke's sitting there saying, wait a minute, why do I got to flip the bill if we're all making money off of this move?
Well, in the story, hold on real quick. Let me finish, because the owners, the source of this ESPN story obviously has some good sources, because after the room was updated with Kroenke's view of the agreement, right? Jones spoke and reminded his colleagues that Kroenke has been a good partner, engineering the league's return to Los Angeles after 22 years away and building a stadium that some involved in its construction refer to as, quote, our $6 billion stadium, end quote. So Kraft, who sources said seemed to speak for many in the room, that Kroenke's position was unfair. He mentioned that all the legal hassle he had gone through in 2016, he had served on a 6-person LA committee. He argued that if providing financial records as a result of lawsuits would be a consequence of serving on league committees, it would dissuade other owners from wanting to be on committees and making consequential decisions for the league. Raiders owner Mark Davis reminded the room that in 2016, the LA committee recommended a rival Raiders Chargers Stadium project in Carson, California, by a 5-1 vote over Kroenke's project in Inglewood. Mara spoke and said that Kroenke's change in position was ridiculous, and that if Kroenke had not agreed to indemnify the league, the owners wouldn't have voted for him to move. He said anyone who was in the room in Houston when the vote was taken would know that. So to what you're saying, it doesn't even seem like that's the case, that everybody kind of had the idea that he was going to flip the bill. And now, since everybody's making money, he's just backing out of it, kind of like, oh, this is our problem, when apparently the actual agreement upon the move was you should pay for it.
Which he signed, and you read, and you said that in the article, he signed it. And that's a big deal.
Oh, let me, Jim Irsay said the owner should call Kroenke back into the room to answer questions from membership. Jones argued that Kroenke shouldn't do so without an attorney. And Art Rooney, Pittsburgh Steelers, said the lawyer should handle all these issues. And Mara reiterate, of course, Rooney and Mara have each other's backs, that nobody in the room would have voted for Kroenke to move if not for the full indemnification. So I find it interesting that Rooney said publicly, at least according to these sources, which obviously was somebody in the room, that, let the lawyers handle all this stuff. And it says a lot that Jones is so defensive and that Mara is pissed. So,
but that's what I was saying. The Civil War. You had.
I'm just letting you. I just wanted to say the names. We have the names.
The family-owned mom and pop owners were on one side, and the big money, business acumen dudes were obviously on another side, and it was a huge thing. And I remember last year when the bubble came up.
Oh, wait, real quick, just to fuck, because I said before, today it broke that Kroenke and the NFL, the Missouri Court of Appeals denied the NFL and Kroenke's emergency petition to move the impending trial out of St. Louis. So
Okay.
I think that's a huge L on this front.
Right. And so, that's why I wanted to get to. When the bubble happened, all these reports were coming out, and I got pissed. And I said, see, this is how the media is always on the owner's side, because the players can never figure anything out without it getting leaked. I said, meanwhile, we had a whole civil war going on with the owners, and we didn't know about it till after the fact, right? Which tells me people knew about it during, but they didn't say anything. They waited because there was a long, beautiful piece on ESPN, and I read it in full length, and it was one of the most interesting stories I had ever read, because it showed all of this stuff, the intertwinings of how the league works and what this person was supposed to do and that person. Again, the Raiders, the Chargers, the Rams, how they were all involved, the Cowboys. And I said to myself, wow, why is it when the owners do something, we don't find out about it until after the fact? But every time the players try to do something, it gets leaked in the middle of it. So talks just get destroyed before any momentum can happen. That's done on purpose. Remember that, people. The media don't work for us. They work for the big guys. They're supposed to gatekeep the big guys, but they work for the big guys. So now I find it extremely fascinating that this stuff is getting leaked right now.
And when just to echo what you just said, because you said the media, and a lot of the time people just use that blanket statement. Brett doesn't mean the writers that would write the story about the owners that doesn't get covered for 12 hours on ESPN. Brett's talking about the talking heads on TV that repeat the same one story all day. Because there are plenty of writers on ESPN, at Fox Sports, at CBS Sports, at Yahoo, everywhere that will submit even Fox News, that will submit these stories. And the suits at the top will say, yeah, we're not running that. Period. So even at the whatever your most crooked news outlet is, there is a writer there doing their job. And some suit is saying, that's a great job you did. That story will never see the light of day.
Right.
And that is true when it comes to Fox News and CNN. That is true when it comes to ESPN and Fox Sports. So just for everyone out there, when he says the media, he means, for lack of a better example, the First Takes of the world, the Pardon the Interruptions of the world, the whatever ripoff shows on Fox Sports that of the two I just said. So that's what that is. And it's the truth. It's a sad reality that me and Brett could bust our asses about the owners and uncover some shady shit, and it could get buried until the last second, until it can't get buried anymore. That if we're working on something with players and the players union that would benefit the working class of whatever situation you're talking about, that shit will leak before your story is even getting done being written. So
right. And you know, and again, when you were there, we were there when the players had that talk about the bubble, and we literally went to Quick Check down the street, and somehow, some way, 5 stories had already.
No, it was before that. It wasn't even before we left. I remember when the call ended. So there's a players union call, and it just so happens that me and Brett are the only 2 other people in the house besides the player that was on the call and the call. I'm a journalist. Usually I record meetings. Nothing was recorded, right? I got to be a fly on the wall for one of these things. The second that shit wrapped, I mean, close laptop, get up, walk to the kitchen to pour a glass of water. And that's not even, hyperbolic. And I got a notification from Per Shams or whoever Woj, about what was said at that meeting. Now, not only was that person in on the meeting also, but they were leaking that shit in real time. So by the time everyone hit end on said meeting, it was a notification on my phone.
Right. And so
this system is not built for the benefit of the players and fans. It is built for the,
like you said, the working class, whether the working class is players, whether the working class is me and you. Because again, if it was a union issue at our jobs, it would probably be the same thing, right? The owners are doing all this stuff, but we don't find out.
Oh, it's not a mistake. There's no journalist unions. That's by design. There's no such thing as a union in our profession.
Right. Well, I'm just talking about any job, right? That's what I'm saying. If you're doing something with the union, the stuff's gonna get leaked for y'all side way before it gets leaked on the owner side. That's just how it works. So I do find it fascinating that now here we are, and all this stuff about Kroenke is getting leaked while they're in litigation. You know what I mean? Like this is, this is, to me, this is the most fascinating story in the NFL right now. And the reason why it's not getting covered as much is because they don't want you to talk about it. And I don't blame them for wanting us to not talk about it. They're in litigation. All this stuff is hurting their stuff. And like you already mentioned, the NFL is getting their ass kicked in this litigation so far. And now this stuff is coming out, and it's public knowledge that the city of St. Louis can now use for their side of the story. And what I think is incredibly awesome about this, and where my mind goes, is one, the corruption in business, and two, I think St. Louis is going to get a team out of this. And the reason why I think that is because it's also been reported that the settlement numbers, some say have been in the billions. Others are saying, no, it's not in the billions, but it's more than some of the net worth of some of these other owners, which is why Kroenke is saying, wait a minute, I ain't about to flip this bill. Wait a minute. I thought it was going to be a couple million, wash my hands with it. If we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars, close to $1 billion worth of a settlement, I'm not flipping that by ourselves. There's 32 of us. We could all take a little chunk out. And that's what these owners are saying. Wait a minute. You agreed that you would pay this. That was literally a contingency on us voting for you to make this move. Now that the bill is getting a lot higher than you thought it was, now all of a sudden it's a we problem, not a you problem. You the one that wanted to move. We didn't want you to move. You wanted to move.
And little, to use a little verbiage of my profession, a lot of times in municipalities, when something's approved by a planning, zoning board, or whatever, it's called a conditional approval, which means if the applicant agrees that if we vote in the affirmative for you, that you will do these conditions because that's how you got the yes vote. Pretty much, Kroenke was like, yeah, I agree that I'll pay this as a condition of my approval. He got approved, and since his plan worked, like the approvals are based off of, you make the argument, this will be beneficial to the town, this will be beneficial to the entire community. So Kroenke did that. He said it'd be beneficial to the league to have the Rams in LA, and it is. But a condition of them moving to them was for you to pay your bills. And now he's pretty much arguing that since it was what he says it was, he doesn't have to do what he said he would do, which, mind you, just for everyone listening to my voice right now, happens on a local level regularly. So if you don't like this in your football, you just go to your town hall and make sure that's not happening in your planning and zoning boards either, because companies do this shit all the time.
And vice versa, towns do. Matter of fact, me and you talk about all the time, because I used to do what you did back up in Bergen County. One of the towns that I covered, they had a redevelopment plan. A redeveloper, they agreed to all of that. Was years ago. That was 5 years ago. Nothing has ever been built, and they're suing the town because they feel like they went back on their word on what was supposed to happen. The town saying that no, the redevelopers went back on their word on what was supposed to happen. So they're now in litigation with each other over a project that was supposed to be handled 5 years ago when I was covering them. Actually, what is it? It's almost 2022. It's almost been 7 years ago. Okay. I was covering this in 2020.
And that's not even, and guys, that's so regular, it's not special. That's why he doesn't remember it. Because I've covered this month, or I should say last month, more than one developers agreement, and one of them is going into litigation in one town. So this is not oh my God, I can't believe this is happening business. The only reason we're covering it on our podcast is because it's the NFL. If this was any other business in any other town,
regular Tuesday.
This is news. This is
matter of fact, this would be what you would cover at your meeting tonight.
For real. This is like, that's why I said it the way I did, because so many people don't realize that businessmen, because we always glorify that like it's I'm a businessman. Yeah, they're usually trying to just to get as many dollars as possible by paying the least, and they don't care if it hurts the community. In this case, it's the community of St. Louis and the NFL, because when you're pissing off the Rooneys and the Maras, you're doing a great job. Brett was alluding to Jerry Jones, who is, to his credit, he's an historical American businessman. No one's saying otherwise. Dude knows business, but he's not defending Kroenke because Kroenke's right, or that's why I just kept using that vague political language of think about all he's done for us. Think about all he's done for us. Want to know why? Because Jerry Jones is one of the most powerful men in the NFL. And he doesn't want too much shit getting rained down on a guy that helped make them, the collective good old boys club, $6 billion.
Right. And
that's insane.
And the reason why I said, well, so bro, what do you mean St. Louis is going to get the team? Well, here's the thing. Again, this litigation settlement is getting so high, and so far it seems like the NFL is losing every single term of this litigation. The NFL might turn around and say, yo, instead of paying this, why don't we just give you a team? Now, they're not going to get the Rams back, but either they'll see maybe the Jaguars want to go there.
Hold on. You want to hear my crazy? You like conspiracy theories, right? So to flash back on the podcast, there was a St. Louis team in the last 2 years. If you remember, the XFL had the Battlehawks. Why do I bring them up? The NFL likes good poster boys. They like money. They like people that can make money, can talk, and that are likable. Who is more likable than Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson? And which of these 9-figure people are close to $1 billion, but could probably find $1 billion to get up to start an ownership group? The Rock owns the rights to a St. Louis franchise that had some fanfare in a stadium. It's not too crazy to think that there will be an LLC, and maybe not the Battlehawks, but might be the Battlehawks and the XFL.
Well, and that's where I was going to. They'll move a team like the Jaguars, or maybe even the Bills, because they're also kind of in the same situation where they.
I think the Bills are safe with a New Era Stadium now.
Yeah, I know they want to keep the Bills in Buffalo. They did break ground. They did finally finalize a new stadium. So maybe the Jaguars, but I could see expansion. The NBA is looking to expand.
I think it's expansion. I don't think it's relocation, because we've said the Jaguars for so long that I just don't. I'm starting to not believe it, because the longer we say the Jaguars are going to move, it seems like the more hardcore their fan base is getting. Like eventually,
which is good. Which is what you want.
I do not want to make people in the swamps of Florida pissed off. We're from Jersey.
I only named the Jaguars because that is a team that we always talk about being moved.
Oh yeah,
but that's what I was getting at, Charles. I think the biggest thing is probably expansion. The NFL there's more money, right? If we have more teams, that's more money.
So you think, hypothetically, because I just wanted to play the game of don't be surprised if somehow The Rock is talking about a St. Louis franchise as a spokesperson and he owns like 2% of the team, because that's not that crazy of an idea, especially when it comes to brand recognition, licensing, and all that other crap. But when it comes to expansion, St. Louis is a possible expansion place. And then you're thinking, where would that second city be to even out the teams? And would it be London? I don't think so. Or would it be Austin or San Antonio or Oklahoma City? I'm leaning towards personally Oklahoma City or Tulsa or some type of Oklahoma-based pro football team, because it's either that or like Portland. You know what I mean? And I think they're more likely to put another team in Oklahoma with St. Louis. Or
honestly, I think what might happen is maybe they go back to Oakland and say, yo, can y'all please build us a new stadium? We'll give you a team back in Oakland. I could see that too.
I don't know, man. I feel like that's sacrilegious, because like it's like you're the hurt girlfriend. Like, what if the Raiders want to come home one day? You know what I mean? Like,
well, the Raiders ain't coming home no time soon. Not with that brand new stadium.
That's a nice stadium, man.
And again, the Rams aren't going to come back home. So I do like your The Rock idea. But also Jay-Z is sitting there. He's going to get a team. Like we're not. Let's be very smart about. Let's just use our common sense. That deal that he made with the NFL, and he's trying to make them cool again. He's trying to be like, yo, man, y'all need some black representation up in here. Who's more black than me? I have a black album. You know what I'm saying? I got the blueprint. Okay, so I got the blueprint for you to be successful. And now we got Dr. Dre and Kendrick Lamar performing at the Super Bowl. I never in my
Dr. Dre, just don't stand there, operate.
Like I never in my lifetime thought that would happen. Jay-Z is going to get a franchise one day.
Okay.
It's going to happen.
Let
And
me just
so
tell you right now, if it's Jay-Z and The Rock owning an NFL team, I'll take back everything I've ever said to you about second favorite teams having two teams, because
oh,
I'll just be like,
I know you'll have three teams. It's like I love my Giants, but Jay-Z and The Rock. Oh, I can't.
if Jay-Z and The Rock are one ownership group, I'm just gonna sit there just like, well. My heart.
No, what is funny? Well, again, I think you can't have an odd number of teams. You're going to need an even number of teams. So I think The Rock could easily get one. I think Jay-Z will get one. Right? If they can only do one team right now, I think it's going to go to Jay-Z's group. And then if they want to do the two for the price of one and get the two teams out of the way, I think I like your idea of The Rock. Again, it's diversity. It's something because the NFL knows they need a facelift in terms of how they are viewed upon. Oh, and by the way, I'm glad that's another thing I want to bring up with this. A lot of people are saying that's another reason why they won't get publicize those Washington football team emails and investigations. And that's another reason why people are saying Al Davis is like, no. I'm sorry, Mark Davis. Sorry, rest in peace, Al. Mark Davis like, no, please.
I'm gonna say the ghost of Al Davis did what now?
No. A lot of people saying that's why Mark Davis keeps saying, no. Publicize them, make them public. Why did I have to go down and fire one of my best friends and look stupid and lose out on millions of dollars because he still had 6 years, $60 million worth of money that I owe this guy? Why did I have to do that? But nobody else is losing anything here, including Washington, which was the whole point of the investigation. They're not even getting killed yet. I'm the one that had to sacrifice. Go ahead and make them public. Let's put all of our dirty laundry out here. And a lot of people think, no, they don't want to do that because I'm sure in those 6,000 plus worth of emails, there's something about this cronky situation in there. And because they're in litigation, they cannot afford to put that out there.
Oh, yeah, 100%. I thought you were going to say something like that they are explicitly saying something about a POC owner. And I was like, yeah, probably. But then
that too.
But you're 100% right. There's definitely something related to this in one of those emails that the only reason it isn't because the public perception would be, oh my God, that's secondary. It will literally cost them a millions, if not billions, in money because of their own stupidity of putting it in writing. Which, mind you, almost everything in the last decade has came out because they were emailing each other. And it's like, why were you talking about Kaepernick on email? You know what I mean? Like little stupid things that it's just like,
because they're old white men that don't understand that's not what you do, which is why you need some fresh new blood. It's like the Senate and in Congress. We can't have people that grew up in the 50s making 2021 legal decisions. It's a different world. And that's what this is. These are guys that grew up in the 40s and the 50s. That's how old some of these cool people are that are making decisions on 2021 life. And we're wondering why they can't get it right. This is a completely new world than what the world that they grew up in. It's just that simple. And they need fresher, newer blood. That's really the only difference between them and the NBA. The NBA has just younger owners who get it a little bit more than the NFL. So at least be like, yo, in public, let's act like we give a damn about Black people. Like in public, let's at least make it sound like we care if you punch your wife. Like
wasn't it the Texans owner that said we can't have the inmates running the asylum? And
he didn't
the entire world just went.
He didn't even say asylum. He said we can't have the inmates running the prison. And I'm like, bro, that's not even how the saying goes, my boy.
Yeah, we remember that. So last thing before we wrap up, this is what happens when we start zoning out about vaguely things we know how to cover. Irony, right? Me and you sound like dorks when we're talking about things we actually love. We start talking about litigation and how it applies to municipalities, and we're like, oh my God, we know this.
My years of school paid off.
My years of random jobs at work paid off. You a couple of years ago already, when we did our top 10s, who we think our top 10 is, I got shit because I put Vic in my top 10 all-time quarterbacks, because we did a mixture of right now, stats, influence, potential, yada, yada, yada. My questionable one in the top 10 was Vic. Your questionable one in the top 10 was Mahomes. Now, to your credit, since that we did that list, he did win a ring. So before I
went to another Super Bowl.
And went to another Super Bowl. So you are not, was not a crazy pick based off potential. But as we've seen this year, he is not playing up to that same potential. And the entire team, not just Mahomes, just doesn't look like they have that same fire or that aura of invincibility around them. So how do you feel now, a couple of years removed? Do you feel like he's definitely still on the trajectory to be a top 10 quarterback? Or do you feel like in another 5 years, he's going to be kind of like join the echelon of, oh man, remember when they looked like they were going to be a dynasty, like the 2015 Cubs or the 80 whatever Mets? Sorry, I'm not that big into baseball. But those types of teams that looked like they had potential to be a dynasty. Hell, you could even throw the Eagles in there from a couple of years ago. Some people thought that team was built for a couple of seasons and it's blown up already. So do you think that's where the Chiefs are headed?
No, I don't, only because he's signed for 10 years. As long as he's their quarterback, they have a chance. And let's put this in perspective, right? This is kind of like when Aaron Rodgers fell off a few years ago, where it's like the numbers he's putting up are great. They're just not super duper human numbers that we're used to. And it's like, oh my God, he's thrown for 3,000 yards already, but he's got 10 interceptions. Oh, the sky is falling. Listen.
Yo, we got robbed last night. We picked that shit off. And then they pulled that bullshit offsides call, man.
No, he was offsides. I saw
he was offsides. I'm just being bullshit in the sense of like we picked him off. Like
which is ironic because that's literally what happened to the Chiefs their first year, or else they would have been in 3 different Super Bowls, and I definitely would have been like sitting on my pick, like top 10, got it. But in all seriousness, it's not just Patrick Mahomes. The defense isn't good. The offensive line still isn't good. The wide receiver again drops. Wide receiver, some of those interceptions are going through guys' hands, popping up in the air and getting interceptions. So it's not all on Patrick Mahomes. And Patrick Mahomes does seem to have a hero complex. When your defense can't stop anybody, they're just forcing it because they feel like they got to score every time to win, right? But I'll give him, I'll criticize him too. He hasn't been playing the best either. I think it's one of those things we've seen this in sports, especially when the shimmer is off and God is shown to bleed, right? A lot of times people just lose their swagger. Whenever you get to a point where it's like, oh, they're immortal, you know what I mean? Like they're not this unstoppable way. We saw it with Tiger Woods when he came back. It wasn't, health and all that stuff aside, he wasn't immortal anymore. He didn't put fear in other golfers' hearts anymore. And you just saw that change everything. The Chiefs don't scare people anymore. You know what I mean? Like people realize, okay, we can defend them. There is a way. Now, again, they're 4-4. It's not like they can't win a game. So again, the sky's not falling here. But at the end of the day, they need to reevaluate who they are as a football team. They got to realize the running gun way that they were playing is not going to work, every time now. They got to make adjustments. They got to run the ball more. They got to throw it in the middle of the field more, not just on the outside. They got to protect the football. A lot of it is just turnovers. You're not going to win a lot of games if you're turning the ball over 2-3 times a game. That's just not going to happen, especially when your defense doesn't create turnovers. You know what I mean? Like they are a much better team than what their record is showing there are. They're just not playing well right now. And part of that is they lost their mystique. They lost that edge. They lost that swagger. And to be very honest with you, I told you this after the Super Bowl. I'm looking at a couple people on that team and I'm saying, yeah, bro, but you are who I thought you were. Because before Patrick Mahomes got there, this is who you were. I'm looking at a particular tight end. I'm looking at a particular wide receiver. Every year people forget this was a playoff team. They had to trade up to get Patrick Mahomes. They were good with Alex Smith. They blamed Alex Smith for them not taking him over the edge. But my thing was like, Travis Kelce, where are you? The Steelers played y'all a couple times in the playoffs. You didn't do nothing crazy. Tyreek Hill, where are you? I've seen you guys in the playoffs. You're putting up numbers, but in the playoffs, where are you? When it gets a little bit more physical, where are you? Patrick Mahomes gave him that swag and gave him that confidence to beat their chest and feel like they're invincible. Now you're starting to see them put a hat on these boys a little bit more, get a little physical, not allow them these free reins to get these deep plays off every time. Teams are saying, yo, we're going to keep at least 2 safeties back at all times. We're not letting you beat us over the top. We're just not going to let that happen. Now that you're seeing they're playing a lot more zone too. Now the teams are doing that. All this is gone. All the that's gone, and they're losing their mystique. I'm not saying that they can't get it back, but they got to reevaluate who they are as a football team. They got to toughen up a little bit.
And I think next week, I think it's a perfect time for us to go back and reevaluate who we said were contenders and pretenders and see how that's been shaping out since week 4. Because as we all know, 4 weeks in the NFL changes a lot of different perceptions. And one thing that I'm sticking to my guns on is I called the Raiders a contender. And right now, it looks like it's their division to lose. Because you're not telling me the Raiders or Raider Nation was watching the Monday Night Football game against the Chiefs and the Giants last night, and we're like, oh, man, there's no way we can win this division with the Chiefs in it. Raiders fans were looking like, oh, y'all look like food.
I think they will. I think that, well, here's the thing. That Henry Ruggs thing is huge. That's he's a big part of their football team. 2, I'm also of the mindset I'm not going to jump on the bandwagon of the Vegas Raiders just yet either. They beat the Eagles and they beat who's the other team? The Broncos. Okay, not neither one of these guys are world beaters.
And the Ravens.
No, I'm talking about since John Gruden.
Oh, okay.
Since John Gruden left, they're 2-0. They had a bye week last week, and they play your Giants on Sunday, so they might win that game, right?
Might.
So I'm not going to sit there and say, "Oh my goodness, the Raiders are such a great team." I gotta see it. I gotta see it. They beat the Ravens. I gave them their problem. That's still probably one of the best games of the year.
Oh, it's still my game of the year.
They're a good football team. I gotta see what they're going to look like when they play some real competition. And by the way, I feel bad for them because this is just another distraction, right? And it's not their fault. John Gruden said some stuff 10 years ago and been saying stuff for the last decade that gets him fired. And now your best receiver, besides Darren Waller, but he's your tight end, but your best actual wide receiver is probably gone for the season now, like with this DUI charge.
His career is probably done.
Right. So I don't even want to rag on the Raiders and say, oh yeah, typical Raiders. Like that's just stuff you can't control.
No, anyone saying typical Raiders or something like that, they're just haters. And that is what it is. Before we sign off of here, the only thing I got to say about my Giants for this week, because usually every episode I say something. It's like I said last time when we're talking about, is it too early to judge Joe Judge? Penalties killed the Giants again. Mr. I want to be Patriots light. Penalties killed the Giants again. So what are you doing with this ship?
Hold on. Come on now. Since we said that, they've beaten the Panthers, which okay, and they could have beat the Chiefs.
Could have, would have, should have, man.
No, but hold on, Charles. To be fair, they're playing hard, man. They're playing hard,
and penalties cost them. If penalties aren't the burden of a coach, usually, especially when your coach is doing all that, we're going to play the game right, BS all the time.
Joe Judge's fault that homeboy just jumped off sides?
It's Joe Judge's fault when it's happening in every game and penalties are an issue. Yeah, that's on Joe Judge. Every game, penalties are an issue. Every game, there's a bad penalty that costs us the game. Every game.
But last night, y'all were winning the penalty battle. It was one. Let's be real. It was just one penalty that screwed y'all up. And a dude on just who tried to stop himself, he just couldn't. That's not on the coach.
And every game, there's an illegal man downfield penalty. If that's not coaching, what is it?
Yeah, but a lot of those are during RPOs though. That happens a lot.
We're not running RPOs like that. I'm just letting you know. Nah, it ain't happening on those plays where you're thinking that might be the play. No, it's just. I don't know, man. But
Okay, well, I want to say one thing real quick since we're talking
got
about your Giants, and I brought up the Eagles, right? You know me, I love the draft. I love looking at this stuff, and there's a certain situation that to me I think is fascinating, right? Because it's an interesting thing. Both the Eagles and the Giants are probably going to have 2 top 10 picks this year, right? Both the Eagles and the Giants have at least questions about their quarterback. Now, like you said, Daniel Jones hasn't been the problem this year. I think Philly fans will say Jalen Hurts hasn't been the problem this year, but we still don't know if they're the guy you want moving forward.
Mhm.
If you have 2 top 10 picks, and also grain of salt, this is not considered a great quarterback draft. Is it something you have to at least consider with your second pick? I would never do it on the first. I see some mock drafts having them take a quarterback, like the Eagles taking a quarterback with the 3rd pick overall, or something. The Giants taking a quarterback with the 5th pick overall. I don't think you would ever do that. But with your 7th overall pick, with your 10th overall pick, would you at least consider it, especially if all the quarterbacks are still on the board? If the 1 and 2 guy on your board for quarterbacks is still there at 7, 8, 9, 10, wherever your second pick lies, do you at least consider it?
I would be shocked if the Giants did it. I wouldn't be shocked if the Eagles did it. And you know, I'm a Jalen Hurts fan, so no shade to him. I'd be shocked if the Giants did it because I from everything I read, they are attached to Daniel Jones and to everything to me. I'm the one that's been super critical of him, and even I'm saying he's not the problem. So
Actually, I'm glad you brought that up because that's what I meant to say too. With the Giants, I think is interesting because, like we said with the Joe Judge pod, you have a new court, you have a new GM and a new coach, right?
Mhm.
Just depending on what happens. So if they're both sitting there saying like we're not tied to Daniel Jones, we want to bring our guy in. You know, that's why specifically with the Giants, it's weird. I feel like the Eagles will probably have their GM and coaching staff still in place for the draft. The Giants might not. So the Giants might be sitting there saying, "Well, hold on, Daniel Jones isn't our guy. We want to
I
bring
don't
our guy."
I hear what you're saying. I just don't see how any quarterback in this draft would be a new coach's guy when usually when that's the case, it's a Kyler Murray or somebody that you see this far out, like, hey, somebody's going to move up to get him, yada, yada, yada. So there is none of those guys this
Well,
year.
and,
I
and that's
think,
what I'm saying. I'm not saying they're going to move up. I'm saying if you have 2 picks in the top 10 with that second pick, would you at least consider
oh
it?
no, I'm not
Because
saying they move up. I'm saying there's not even that guy to float as trade bait for the teams that would hypothetically move up. I wouldn't go quarterback because unless there's somebody that emerges that becomes the hype, I don't know anybody that would even be the replacement for Daniel Jones because then you're restarting kind of like what the Jets did and you're just going in the motions of, well, now we got to give this guy 3 years to see what he is. I'm just starting to see what Daniel Jones is. And if the team was healthy, Daniel Jones could look better. He hasn't looked that bad. He's looked good in plenty of these games. So why am I going to give up on him for a guy that would be another collegiate equivalent of when I drafted him? So that's kind of where I'm at. Like, if anything, the Giants should go right side of the offensive line and then another offensive lineman in the top 10. I think they're probably going to go O-line and pass rush in the top 10 is if I had to guess. I don't think unless there's some type of dynamic wide receiver that we're just kind of like, oh hell yeah, him. I don't that's what how I see us going.
No, realistically, you'll probably go defense with your number 1 pick. If it's top 5, you'll probably go defense. And then with that second top 10 pick, you could go offensive line. That's maybe the smartest thing to do. And the Eagles probably the same thing. You're going to go defense with that first top 5 pick, and then with the second pick that's in the bottom 5, probably either offensive line or defense or maybe even wide receiver.
The Giants have 11 picks in this draft: 2 firsts, a second, 2 thirds, 2 fourths. So, and then, you know, a fifth, a sixth, a seventh, and 2 sevenths. Well, the second seventh is from the Panthers. So we have picks. So, like, I don't see a reason to pick a quarterback in a draft that no one is really in love with any quarterback. That's when you are going to really overvalue a like Geno Smith level quarterback.
No, no, you're right. I just think it's fascinating because, like I said, it's not like you're sold on the guy you have either. You know what I mean? And sometimes And sometimes it's like, well, you know what? Maybe it's better to restart and reset the clock.
Tell them where they can find you, bro.
You can find me at Never For Brett Me, NEVA _ the number 4 BRETT _ ME on Instagram and Twitter.
And we're at the Dope Blog, all one word on Twitter, at _Dope Blog on Instagram, discussing other people's excellence group on Facebook. I'm at Not the Chuck D on all the socials, www.thedope.blog. And eventually me and Brett are going to do a tier list for all the under 27-ish quarterbacks in the league. And yeah.
If you're watching this on YouTube, please like, share, and subscribe. And obviously visit us to find all of our latest content, man.
And discuss other people's excellence. You forgot your own sign off.
No, I was about to say that. Damn, relax. And join us next time as we continue to discuss other people's excellence.
There you go.
There you go. See, I needed 2 top 10 picks to get that done.
Yeah, you ain't getting one. I'll trade you.
I might get a new team like St. Louis though, so we good. I'll have 3 teams.
Go Battlehawks. Caw.